Welcome, this is the first lesson of the Basic Blender course. Let me introduce myself. I am Francesco. Andresiani and I have been involved in the popularization of this beautiful software for several years. Before to begin, I would like to give you some very important pointers. I have discovered it over the years. The first thing is that Blender is a program, yes, very vast. It is a program in continuous evolving. However, I want to remind you that the basics, well or badly, are always the same. It is a bit like learning to drive a car. They can improve the models every year. However, the basics are always the same. Many people who are at the beginning of this path often find themselves having problems and are convinced that these problems stem from a different version of the software they see in the recorded video than the one they have in their computer. Here is the 99% of the time the problem you are experiencing is not a version problem. Instead, it could stem from either from a small detail you missed or even from an unintentionally activated option, or from exploring some option without perhaps realizing that you have activated some commands or options that at first may seem hidden. What I would like to say is, don't worry. Because as we will see, there is an option to reset everything, to go back to the starting point. And one thing I encourage you to do is to take a look at the descriptions that are below each video and possibly the comments. For example, in lesson 1 of the basic course currently posted on my channel and which will be replaced by this new series, we see a series of written here at the bottom and one word other. It means that if we go to click, it expands a whole series of information that can help us to have some indication in particular whether there is an error in the video that you have pointed out to me or a change that over time has been applied to the latest version of Blender. Here in this section of the page I'm going to write down for you any resolutions to the problems. Below you will find all the comments from people. So if a problem can occur often enough, what I'm going to do is write it down here where the video description is how to solve that problem. So before I discourage you, before you blame the version of Blender, I recommend go look at the descriptions that are underneath the videos. Well, having said that, what is Blender? Blender is open source software, free software, completely free therefore. It is a cross-platform software that can be run on macOS, Windows and Linux environments. It is a software that allows us to model objects, three-dimensional objects, allows us to animate characters, allows us to make images static, allows us to make cartoon animations, allows us to make effects, visuals, video montages, compositing. It allows us to do physical simulations, to make elements with parametric systems through nodes and so many other things. Blender is used in architecture, in archaeology, in veterinary medicine, in orthopedics, in many fields. It would take an entire lecture just to explain how vast the scope of Blender is, but if you are here, you already know. Well, how do you download Blender? Blender can be found starting at the Blender Foundation site www.blender.org. We click on download. So here the site already knows what operating system we are using and suggests the most suitable download. Right now, I am using macOS, so I am given the option to download the version for Intel or for Apple Silicon. However, I can also download the other versions for Windows, for Linux, or even download the source code. Because if you are, for example, a programmer, you not only can you have Blender for free, but you can also have the source code. You can explore, you can see what's under the hood, you can even modify it and redistribute it. But here you open a chapter actually beyond the scope of the basic course. If we go down this page, we also see the link to the what's new, that is, what's new in this latest version. Going down further opens a red section as if to say, warning, we are entering a danger zone. But what is it? It is a section that allows us to download the experimental versions of Blender. One very interesting thing is that of Blender we can download all the previous versions. So at any time we can access as early as version 1.0 up to today's version. So if you will need to install older versions, you will be able to do so at any time. If you will need support, please know that we have a beautiful and very large community of Blenderists that can come to our aid. I strongly encourage you to explore www.blender.it, which is the site that hosts the Italian Blenderisti community, and also the Blender Italia Association, through which the members raise funds every year to produce new courses, to produce events. For example, every year we do the conference national in a different city in Italy, and many other things, such as, for example, the translation into Italian of short films, giving out cash prizes. Anyway, I really invite you to come and explore this site. If you need support, you can go into the community and enter the support section, or go inside to the forum where you can introduce yourself, ask your questions, and maybe even attach some screenshots to make it clear what your situation. I also encourage you to follow the contests, which are a great opportunity to put yourself to the test, even if you are starting from scratch. In fact, especially jump in and try it, because practice your knowledge, even if you are a novice, will help you grow really very quickly. Well, we downloaded Blender, installed it, and here we are at the first opening. How to follow these lessons? I will try to make short videos, 10 to 15 minutes, which I recommend you watch a first time without interruption, maybe on a full HD monitor, and possibly even with headphones on so there are no distractions. A first viewing without doing anything, so that you can possibly take notes and only then go and review the various steps to try to follow step by step what I will show you in the lesson. In addition, know that there is the possibility of downloading handouts that I have already prepared for you for the basic course, already published and will still be updated. So if you have the pleasure of supporting the production of these lessons, you will have the opportunity to purchase these handouts, and any updates that will be made just for this new course will be included as a free update. I would like to say that the purchase of the handouts is absolutely optional. All the information to learn the basics of Blender is and always will be free. However, if you have the pleasure to support the publication of these lectures and also of the future ones, you have that option. Find the link always in the description of the video, and you also have the opportunity to subscribe to this YouTube channel, through which you will be able to also access hands-on tutorials and much more. Well, let's start with Blender. At startup, we are presented with this square window which is called splash screen, and which presents a cover image with the Blender logo. This cover image changes with each new version of Blender, and here in the bottom left corner we find the name of the author. Who knows, maybe someday even you who are seeing this video for the first time can be an author of a cover. Here at the bottom we see two columns where we find new file. It allows us to start a new file type. General, 2D animation, sculpting, VFX, video editing, but really, reality, these are simply different interface settings. It's still Blender. Changes absolutely nothing, and so most of the time you will not need to use this menu. You will simply click in a random spot on the monitor and go ahead, start working. Here at the bottom you have the open icon that allows us to go and open a file that you or other people have already created. Below that, again, we have recover last session. Unfortunately, sometimes it can happen that for whatever reason you exit the program without having saved here with recover. Last session, there is the possibility of trying to recover the work that we had not yet saved. Here on the right we have recent files, that is the recent files that we worked on. There are the last 5. So very quickly, with one click, we can get back to work where we left off. Below still we have the option to access the donation page. Just know that Blender is an open source program. However, it is developed thanks to donations. Donations, yes, from large companies, but also donations from smaller entities, from individuals, or even from associations such as the Blender Italia Association. Finally, we have the link to the news page that we have already seen on the download page. Well, for this very first lesson, we stop here, and you will say, "But how? You haven't shown me anything yet." True, however, we have actually already installed the program, and now comes the time to do the first exercise that I invite you to do before we see the next lesson. It is to try to explore Blender completely autonomously. So click anywhere on the monitor and start exploring freely. Don't be afraid to compromise the program. Nothing happens. Just try, click, drag, rotate, scale. Try it. This is the first approach, the first exercise, and you will see that it will be very useful. I thank you for following me, and I will see you again soon.